Welcome to the Tearing It Up podcast. I'm your host, Taryn. We'll be tearing it up, tearing it down, and tearing it apart, dissecting all things related to those who deviate from the standard. From leaders of their industry to leaders of mediocrity, and maybe a gear review or two thrown in. We shoot the shit and let the conversations flow, so if that's not your style, this may not be for you. Otherwise, listen in. Hope to light a fire in you somehow. Do that. So, okay. Hi, everybody. I am, as I said, always excited for an episode, but this one is extra special to me because, one, we're at Swell, made it to the Outsprings event, Swell, that we've been talking about for months, and it was like by the skin of my teeth that I made it here, but I did. I'm missing Amber, but I'm happy to be here, and I'm super happy to have the guest with us right now, Sensi Graves. So I'm going to tell you why this is like extra special for me is because even before I started the podcast, I had a list of people that I'd like to have on my podcast, and I had two categories. One was like low-hanging fruit, which would be either just, friends that I look up to, have a successful business and whatnot, and then there were some people that just was titled someday. And like, okay, after I really get a name or get this thing going, I can maybe ask that person. And Sensi Graves was one of those people on that someday list. And when I found out she was going to be a speaker here at Swell, that's when I was like, okay, I've got nothing to lose, whatever, I'm going to ask her. Like, I'll see her at this event, I'll get to meet her in person. So maybe, she'll say, I don't know, and meet me in person, fall in love, and we can have the conversation. But she said yes, like, let's do it. And we decided we're going to wait till the event to try and do it in person. So again, we don't get to do a lot of interviews in person. So another like cherry on top of it all is that I get to sit next to you and do it. So Sensi Graves, she is a professional kiteboarder and has a sustainable swimwear line that she created on her own and runs. And I am going to turn it to you now, Sensi, to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. I'm stoked to be here. Making dreams come true, apparently. Yeah. I love it. Oh, I love hearing that. My name's Sensi, and I'm a Hood River, Oregon resident. Been there for a decade. I'm a professional kiteboarder. I founded Sensi Graves Swim, which is a made-in-the-U.S. sustainable swimwear line for active women. And I'm also an inspirational speaker and mentor, and I mentor on business and confidence. And my mission in the world is to help people that look successful on the outside feel successful on the inside.
I love that because I was actually just having a conversation with the neighbor next to me, the tabling neighbor, Christine Reed, who I hope to talk to as well, kind of about that, like I don't sell myself very well, but I love building other people up. So I'm going to have to talk to you more about getting that like confidence and building that and talking to you on that realm of things. And so we'll get there. We'll get to that part in your story. I want to learn more about kiteboarding, how you got into kiteboarding, and how, your swimwear line came about from that, and how you got to being a speaker today. So when did you start kiteboarding? Obviously, you're from Hood River?
No, I grew up in Northern California. So yeah, let's chunk it down. Start at the beginning. I started kiteboarding relatively late. I was 18 years old when I first learned. My dad had a wild hair idea and was like, I'm going to go learn to kiteboard. And then the next summer, I have 3 brothers, and he was like, we're all going to learn to kiteboard. And I was like, what? I've never even heard of this sport. I'm from Northern California. Originally, I was going to school in San Diego. And we went out to North Carolina for a week, learned to kiteboard. I loved it and kept in touch with the school that we had learned at. And over the next 2 years, kind of kiteboarded here and there. Wasn't super into it. I was in college. And then they were looking for coaches, hiring kiteboarding instructors. And I said, that sounds like a fun summer job. And I honestly think they were talking more to my brothers than to me when they were like, hey, we're looking for coaches. But I was like, yep, sign me up. So actually my older brother and I moved to North Carolina in between the summer of my junior and senior year of college. And it's not an over-exaggeration to say that kiteboarding has given me everything. Everything from my life and from that point. My husband, where I live, all of my businesses, I have multiple businesses, the community. It's just a phenomenal sport, and I can't say enough good things about it in the community.
I love that. I have never been kiteboarding. I've never even been wakeboarding. I've been wake surfing once. I love the water, and I identified in my mind as like a surfer, but I never was. But I was like, oh my God, in an alternate life, I would love to have been like born and raised in Hawaii and just like a surfing gal and be in the water all the time. I was in the water all the time, like fishing for salmon, but not like surfing. And I've always looked at kiteboarding and thought like that looks awesome, because anything with water I want to do. And so to me, just watching you do this sport that was so foreign to me, just put it even more up on a like, wow, look at what she's doing. That seems so untouchable to me. And also, I mean, that sport, obviously, depending on where you're from, but I think compared to a lot of other sports people know about, a lot of people don't know about kiteboarding or how big it is, or that there's competitions and things like that. So I feel like being a woman in a sport, especially that's not super well known, was just even another like awesome thing and hurdle that you probably had to get over. So especially, you just said like it was probably your brother that the guy was talking to about being a coach, and you were like, nope, I'm gonna do it. Were there other women coaches, or were you the first or only?
There were other women coaches, but way more men than women, and still the industry is very male dominated. Honestly, I was just at a trade show for kiteboarding 2 weeks ago, and it was 90% men. It was crazy.
Wow.
One of my friends came, and we were at the industry party one night where they were doing all these awards, and she was looking around and she was like, what the, I can't even believe this industry, because she kites, but she's like, all of the manufacturers and the brands and all of the reps, all of the higher leaders and companies are men.
Yeah.
And so that's defined definitely my career a lot, and just really pushing for women's empowerment and representation in the sport and equal pay. In my last few years of competing, and I no longer compete in kiting, but I competed for a decade. In my last few years, we finally got equal prize money. Like the last year, I think we had equal prize money in some of the competitions. But it's still very much a male-dominated sport. So,
so after that year of coaching, when did you start competing?
Not that long after, honestly, but it was kind of a right place, right time. Not to say that I wasn't good and I didn't put in the effort, but I actually never wanted to be a pro kiteboarder. It wasn't my aspiration. My aspiration was to start a swimwear company. I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Okay.
But I had met my husband, my now husband, and he was a pro kiteboarder, and I started traveling with him and attending competitions, not competing, but training, and like we go to Brazil in the winter and train. Wow. And then I started getting better, and people were like, you should compete. And I was like, I don't want to. Like, I don't feel good enough. Yeah. I don't feel like I learned to kiteboard 4 years ago. I don't feel like I am good enough to compete. What are you talking about? But there are very few women competing, and once again, I was kind of right place, right time, and so I started competing, and then I started doing well, and as I say, the rest is history.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I think we all feel that a lot, is like imposter syndrome, kind of is what it sounds like, but that didn't really have a name then. I feel like that's kind of a newer term, but you're doing this and you don't think you're good enough because you've only done it for this many years, and maybe your husband, who was just your boyfriend at the time, like how long had he been doing it before competing?
Quite a while. Yeah.
So I feel like we put those things on, or we see professional athletes, like when we think about traditional sports of football, basketball, baseball, whatever, the story always goes of they were born with a bat in their hand, or football in their hand, whatever. They played this sport all through their lives, so that means they deserve to be a pro athlete. And when you think like, oh, I've only done this for a couple years, especially I feel like as women, you're like, so I don't have enough under my belt. I don't have enough experience. I haven't gone through this or that to deserve to be professional. But if you're good and you can just be naturally good, or put the work in to be good, like why not? But it's so hard to think that yourself. So once you get in there, I feel like even too competing, when did you become pro?
Gosh, what year actually was it? Now I cannot recall. My first big kite competition was 2012, I think, or 2013. And then shortly thereafter, I got sponsored, and then it was a couple years after that when I actually started getting paid.
Okay, yeah.
So that's what I consider pro. You're getting paid. But it was all that while like I said, battling this idea of I'm not good enough, and when I wouldn't win, I would be really hard on myself, and I couldn't deal with that failure, and I didn't want to be seen as looking stupid, and it was a whole thing.
Yeah.
So honestly, the majority of my competing career was pretty miserable. I mean, it was having fun and traveling the world, and that was awesome, and meeting all the same friends all over the world in different places and hanging out together, and it was amazing. And I did not enjoy that.
Like, you just didn't let yourself enjoy it because
Exactly.
you're just being too hard on yourself.
Yeah,
of,
exactly.
I shouldn't be here. I don't deserve to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of grew out of that, you know, after I'd been competing for a long time.
Yeah.
But there was always that, like, when you don't win,
Mm-hmm.
and even if you feel like you did well, but you don't even make it on the podium, you know, I would get second, third, fourth, and not claiming that top spot was tough.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Just being someone who's hard on myself and kind of growing up with a parent who was like, even if we won, the first thing was I love my dad dearly, and I do think that a lot of this like really built my character. I don't hold any resentment, but it was frustrating at times that it was like, okay, but here's what you did wrong. It's like, well, first say congratulations, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, good job, but like let's not immediately go have a conversation about how I can do better,
Yeah.
like win faster or better or whatever. Like, can we just be happy I won because I'm tired?
Yeah.
But, and I know he was, and it was just constructive criticism, but I do feel like, so I am still hard on myself playing adult co-ed softball, like mad at an error, like striking out
you
or
know, there's
something.
a certain element of competitiveness, which
Yeah.
is good, and that drive, which is excellent, and just having the grit and resilience to put in the effort, because you're not going to get better unless you put in effort.
Yep.
And it's formative. I mean, competing is, I think, an amazing privilege and super formative for my career. And yeah, not an easy time.
No, yeah. So, who was your first sponsor?
Liquid Force kiteboarding.
Okay. Do they make the boards?
Yeah.
Okay.
They
I
used
feel
to make
I've seen-
kites as well.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Now they've gone out of business, actually, but they are still a wakeboarding company. So
Okay.
the kite division has shut down, but wakeboarding's still going.
Like, I feel like I've seen the name.
I'm sure you
before.
have. They're big in
Yeah.
wakeboarding.
Yeah. Like I said, I didn't wakeboard, but growing up, my brother's like best friends had a boat
Awesome.
and did, and so yeah, I just remember seeing the name a lot. But that's just after you competed for a decade.
Yeah.
So just like last year is when you
2020.
stopped. Okay,
Because
2020.
all the competition shut down, and I was like, "Whoa,
Ugh.
this is a perfect time."
yeah.
I'm not coming back.
How do you feel like leaving that? Because a lot of people. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, actually, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah,
I wanted
no.
to share one more thing about
Yeah,
that time
absolutely.
period, which was I was running my swimwear company the whole time.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of the internal struggle I was having was, would I be doing better if I would just focus on one thing?
Yes. Oh my God.
Right?
I
Yeah,
think I
so-
have that thought daily. I've always kind of resonated with like a Jane of all trades, master of none. But then I'm like, should I try to be a master of one?
Yeah.
But I can't. I can't focus on just one thing. There's too many things I love.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't think that's necessarily the way to go about it, because obviously for me it was really amazing, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't be where I am without having the kite career and without having the swimmer company. They really built on one another. But when I was in the thick of it, and I would be at kite competitions and answering customer service emails on the side, and my friends are not doing that at all,
Yeah.
not focused on that, and they're just like having fun, I was just like, man, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Not feeling really successful in either, but really trying super hard.
yeah. So actually, let's get into that, because when did you said you wanted to like have a swimwear company? That was the goal before kiting came along. What were you going to school for? Were you going to school for business or
No.
fashion or anything?
No.
Okay.
I went to school for communications.
Okay.
And so I had no business background, no marketing background, no fashion background. I ordered fabric from New York. I sketched designs in my little notebook, ordered some fabric from New York, found a woman to sew up the suits, and slowly just put one foot in front of the other.
Wow.
And it was really this grit and the saying that goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That was like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. I said I was going to do it. As soon as I told people that I was going to do it, I was like, all right, well, I told people I was going to do it. Now I have to do it.
Yep.
And so it was just a really slow build. But I do want to emphasize, initially, I think I was doing it because I wanted to prove something. And so it took me a long time to come around to getting to that central core of why, which I know now what it is. That's something that's stronger than just like, oh, I'm trying to prove that I can do it.
Yeah.
Because when you come from a place of service and a place of this is helpful for people and I really believe in what I'm doing, it changes everything.
Right.
And I didn't realize that, and I didn't come to that core why for a really long time in my business, probably 8 or 9 years.
Wow. Yeah, we've talked about that a few times through different subjects of your why, knowing your why, from like very simple things in the day of setting a goal. Like, why is your goal? We just recently on a podcast, we had a financial expert on, Tanya Schultz. That was a big conversation of even just getting out of debt. Is like, why? So you can stay out. And so having your why for like anything is so important, but often I think we get sucked into the proving part of whether it was you said you were going to do it or someone doubted you and you just have to prove it to them or yourself. But without a why, it just becomes kind of a vicious cycle, I feel like, of burning yourself out
and
for no reason.
For no reason. It's like if you're not enjoying it. And I'll share one thing about the proving of the self, because I finally learned to be proud of myself after almost a decade of running a swimwear company and being a pro kiteboarder. And I'll share that story, which was at the end of 2019. I'm part of an accountability group, so we do every year like a review of the year and what went well, what we can improve upon, all the things, what we're celebrating. And at the end of 2019, obviously we're moving into 2020, new decade. So I was doing a couple of different coaching things, and the prompt was do a decade in review. Okay, we're moving into a new decade, so do a whole decade in review. And I did a lot of pre-work before our retreat, and I went through all my old journals and all my social media, and I wrote down everything that I was proud of, everything I was celebrating, everywhere I traveled, like so many different prompts, all this stuff. And we get to the day of the retreat, and I'm in this small group with a few other women, and the facilitator's asking some poignant questions, and I just remember I had all of the decade out in front of me, and I just was completely overwhelmed with emotion. I felt a stab in my heart and burst out crying. I had to excuse myself for 20 minutes because it was in that moment that I realized two things. Number one, I was like, wow, I am really proud of the woman I've become. Look at all this stuff I've done over the past decade. Wow. Amazing. I'm so proud of myself. And number two, and this was the painful part, I was like, I've never let myself feel that way.
Oh, wow. That gave me goosebumps.
That brings tears to my eyes.
That is like, now. Yeah.
Because I've been, I was like, wow, I'm the only one that can feel proud of myself. And here I am trying to prove. Here I am looking for accolades other places. Here I am trying to get people to tell me they're proud of me. And I'm the only one that can step into that and realize that.
That is just, like I said, wow. Like
100%,
powerful? Like to the core. Because I feel that. Like just looking for validation elsewhere, like, okay, I can be somebody. I have my personal training business, but that's definitely on the back burner, and this and just things that I've done. But I feel like, oh, what am I like? Who am I doing all this for? And why am I doing it? And if I'm not getting like to this point, is it worth it? But to me, it is, because like I want to do it.
Yeah.
But I've gone through so many peaks and valleys of those, of wondering like, why? Like, no one cares. No one's like stopping me on the street. Not that I want them to, but I'm just like, I feel like I've put so much work in and no one notices, but it's like, I just need to be the only one that notices, or, like I have my why.
But also I'll say something to that, which is, if you think no one cares, that's actually freeing, because everyone's just walking around doing their own thing. I know you've been on a Zoom call. Yeah. Where do you look 90% of the time? You look at yourself.
Yes.
So everyone's just looking at themselves.
Yeah.
And that's like, okay, I can do whatever I want, because actually no one really cares.
Yeah.
And all I need to do is show up in the best way I know, with the most intention that I have, and really have low attachment to everything else. One of my mentors says, high intention, low attachment. Have high intention with what you're doing and low attachment to the outcome, because we can't control it. Yep. You can only do so many things, but the goal is not guaranteed. No matter if you set up everything, do all the manifestations, sometimes things just aren't meant to be.
Yep. Or the timing, right?
And
isn't
the timing
right?
isn't
And all of a sudden, years later or something, it's like, oh, this is it. Like, I've talked about that just as far as like where I'm at in life. It's kind of looking at the last decade of like something I've been dreaming about forever is to be able to work remotely. I mean, for years I wanted a podcast, and it's like, okay, well, like, what am I doing now? Podcasting and working remotely, not completely full time yet, but it's like, it's happening. But we're just in this society that we talk about a lot too of instant gratification. So if it doesn't happen, the moment you say you want that, it feels like, all for naught. Or like, how long is this gonna take? 6 months, a year? Like, we think that's so long, but it's like, no, we still need, especially because of influencers, I feel like, and Instagram things where people are just getting rich so quickly off this or that. You think that that's just how things go. It's like, no, we still need to put time in. Like you said about competing, it ingrains those kinds of things into you of like working hard to get somewhere and get something. I feel like our society is kind of losing touch with that work ethic part, or working hard, and you just, if you don't see it right away, you get disappointed or kind of stop doing it. But it's like, if it's something you want, you have to keep chugging, because when the timing is right, as cliche as it sounds, it will work out.
Totally.
It will work out when it's meant to be.
Yeah, and that's like, how can you create more trust in the process and in yourself?
Yep.
Like, really trusting yourself. And that has been one of the biggest things for me, has just been investing in myself. Yeah. Honestly, just being like, okay, I'm going to hire the coaches, I'm going to hire the mentors, I'm going to do trainings, and then you grow your confidence and you feel more capable, and you know that you can handle the ups and downs of life. Right. Because there's going to be downs. Yep. And it's freaking hard.
Yes.
It's really hard being a human.
Uh-huh.
And it's hard starting your own business. It's hard, all the things. But we have tools that we can utilize to help us remain in the equanimity of, I'm in my heart and I'm in my soul, and no matter what happens, I will be okay.
Yeah. And that's so important. And Amber, my co-host, she says that all the time, like, being a human's fucking hard. Like, when you said that last night, I was just like, oh my God, I so wish she was here, because that is like, she just brings it back to that all the time. And like, that is something that everyone can resonate to. The human experience is happening to all of us. We had a conversation earlier here, a couple gals and I, about when stuff's happening to you, you feel like it's only happening to you. And it's not, and we have to remember that so we can keep pushing through it and find people, sometimes to relate to. Just know you're not alone, even when it feels like you are. So Sensi Swim, that was going like, it sounds like pretty close to the beginning of your kiteboarding career.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, I started I was kiteboarding, I was coaching, but when I started it, I was not competing.
Okay.
So it was first, and that's why I said my dream was always to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It was not to be a pro kiteboarder.
Yeah.
Which, initially I didn't even want to tell people that, because I was like, this makes it sound like I kind of just fell into this and didn't really have to try that hard. And obviously it was a lot of hard work and effort and privilege.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with kiteboarding, and you mentioned how, everything that you do now and have kind of stems from that. So you just have this connection to it. But some people, especially athletes, they identify with that and only that, and can have a hard time moving out of it. And it sounds like, since you created so much from it, that you didn't lose a sense of identity when you stopped competing, but did you at all? Like, how was that process?
That is a great point and a great question, because my best friend and my husband both went through that identity thing, because they both were, I don't want to say only pro kiteboarders, right? But that was all they were focused on and doing. And so when they both transitioned out of competing, they definitely had that feeling. And I don't know if I haven't gone through that because I have so many other things that I'm passionate about, or because I'm still sponsored and, still get paid. So I still identify with that.
Yeah. You're not fully, you're out of competing, but you're still in the
So it's really the best of both worlds.
That sounds great.
Talk to me in maybe 5 years. Yeah. I don't know. Why can't I be a 45-year-old pro kiteboarder? I don't know.
Why not? I mean, I think we need
exactly
more of that. Absolutely. Yeah. Women, like, older than 25 being pro athletes in any sport, and women at, like, becoming moms. There's a lot of skiers and snowboarders, I feel like, out there now who are able to keep their sponsors. They're becoming moms and they're still getting to do their thing and be a pro athlete. And it's like, because we're just taught as women, like, okay, kick the can at 30 for sure,
Yeah.
and like don't even try. But it's like, wait, no, we should still be able to live our lives with,
Yeah.
whether it's with families or without, or just getting older, just as much as the men can.
Yeah.
Like if no one blinks an eye at some, again, like Major League Baseball player, NFL player, like being in their 40s and
Or having kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like why does it have to be a thing for women? Why does their age matter at all?
Yeah.
Also, women get better like as we age. Like it's just like true. And after having kids, you know, they talk about mom strength or things like that. Like 40s, from everything I hear, is like
The new
things just
30s.
get like better. I mean, you can get stronger. It's like a fine wine or whiskey.
Yeah.
Like it's not over at all.
No.
Like that's when women reach their peak at endurance sports a lot. And so, yeah, why are we taught that at this age you should stop pursuing it?
Yeah.
And for any brands or anything out there too, like these are the women that you should be sponsoring so that other women can see them as a role model. Like I want to have role models my whole life. I always want to look to women older than me that I'm like, okay, you're still doing the thing, whether they're a year older, 2 years, 10 years, whatever. I want to know that my life doesn't have to end at a certain age, or my life has to take a hard left and I have to start doing, you know, walks.
Yeah.
Like I want to still know I can mountain bike,
Yeah.
snowmobile, like learn how to kiteboard at 35. Why not?
Yeah.
Like why would I think that like I'm too old to start anything?
Yeah.
So that's keep riding that wave. Yes. I hope that just lasts for you
Thank you.
forever. So you've got kiteboarding, you've got Sensi Swim. How and where did the speaking come from? Obviously, we know you went to school for communication, so has that been something that's always kind of been on your mind too?
No, definitely not. It really started kind of like 2019 as well, 2018, 2019, when I first started kind of thinking about it. I did Toastmasters for a number of years just to develop as a brand speaker and be the face of my brand. Quick little interlude story. When I named my company Sensi, I didn't actually want to be the face of the brand. I was just like, it's just an amazing name.
Yeah,
you know, I was
totally.
like, it's Sensi. Because it was just initially Sensi. And then like a year in, there's a sandal company called Sensi out of Italy. And they called me up and they were like, you can't use it. So
No
I
way.
had to change it to Sensi Graves.
Oh.
And that really made me step in and become the face of the brand, which ended up being a really good thing. But initially I was like, no. Like, I don't want people to look at me like that. No. And so that's been really growing and stepping into my power through that. And so a couple of years into my business, one of my mentors had suggested I do Toastmasters, which if anyone doesn't know, is a public speaking club worldwide.
Oh.
Super affordable and really helpful. So if anyone wants to improve their communication skills, I think speaking is an amazing skill. We should all be developing it.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then it actually started when I got tired of Instagram and I got tired of promoting myself and my brand, and I wanted to serve more and I wanted to educate people and I wanted to help. And so I started sharing my story and sharing more about how I didn't feel good enough and how I didn't believe in myself and all the things, confidence issues, and people started really resonating with it. And they said, wow, okay, we didn't know you felt the way. And I was like, well, you know. People are looking
People
at me
don't
like,
know what they don't know.
yeah,
They
exactly.
don't
It
know
looks
what
really
they'll tell you.
shiny on Instagram, but on the inside, I was not feeling amazing.
Yeah.
And so started sharing that. And then in 2019 or 2020, excuse me, when we obviously had COVID, I was like, oh my God, is swimwear sales going to go down? What am I going to do? And I had done like a develop your own course.
Oh, yeah.
With,
I've seen
with
this.
one of my friends. Yeah. One of my friends and I did it. I don't know, even remember exactly why we did it, but I built my own course because I was like, okay, in case bikinis go under, I'm going to do something else. And then I, made curriculum and developed a programming called Believing Yourself, still available. Go check it out, sensigraves.com. And then I was teaching that more and was like, okay, actually, I've been really inspired by motivational and inspirational speakers, and I love listening to a good speaker, and I get so much out of it. And as I was speaking more and teaching more, I was like, I love teaching. I love input. I love leading a group. Yeah, it's scary. I still get nervous every time I go on stage, and I love impacting people.
Yeah.
And I was like, I believe in this message so much, and that goes back to the why I'm doing it. It's not about me. It's like, I don't care if I look, obviously my ego cares if I look stupid on stage.
Yeah.
If I fall down, whatever, if I forget the whole speech, my ego cares. But I know that the reason that I'm doing this, I'm like, even if I affect one person in the audience, it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I believe in it so much, it's easy for me to sell and to talk about it because I know, I'm like, this is helpful. People need to know this.
Absolutely. And I feel like that, that's not just like a, hey, get rich quick kind of scheme. You are teaching people how to find their confidence. And I think that if you have that true confidence and just positive energy, like that radiates out of you. So if you affect one person who's listened to your talk, if they can build that confidence enough, like that eventually will come out of them to someone else. It's just like a line. It's just going to snowball into like more and more people. Like you're going to help them down the line, inspire others too.
Yeah.
So it's just something that you could never see how far the growth goes and how far the reach goes,
which is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. So what kind of, obviously we're here at Swell, which is an outdoorsy women's weekend gathering. What other kind of events do you do? Do you do things like this or like conferences with corporations? What kind of speaking things are you?
A little bit of conference, corporations, a lot of women's leadership groups. I actually mentor a lot of women. That's another one of my businesses. The mentoring and speaking kind of goes together. Women in tech, because it's overcoming imposter syndrome, or women in male-dominated fields in general. Okay. So I speak to those types of groups, and also athletes, female athletes.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, how about that group? Because that's got to be a huge one too. Again, I think these days, there's a lot more talk, and again, brands sponsoring women at different stages of life that we didn't see, a decade ago or whatnot. But still, I think a lot of women athletes get to a stage, whether it's early in their career, middle, late, whatever, that go through the same stage as anyone else of like losing that confidence or never having found it. Like you said, it took you a long time to find it, and you were still going through the motions without it, and no one would have thought. No one would have thought, like, oh, Sensi doesn't have any confidence. Like, she's just, like, a badass. But, like, inside, you're like, yeah, no, there's still something not, like, lit. Like, so that's amazing to be able to spread that to all sorts of people, too. I think that's the beautiful thing is people from tech to professional athletes can, like, relate to this. And that's amazing. Yeah. So today, you've got all three. You're just kiting for fun. And is Sensi, Tahoe Mountain Sports, we have actually carried some of your swimwear. Yeah. When our buyer brought that in, I was like, oh my God. Because awesome. I have no idea, they do their thing. And so when I saw it arrive at the store, I was like, oh my God, how did you find out about Sensi? Like, obviously she's just a genius who knows a lot of things about apparel and stuff, but I was so excited to see it. And that too is like, oh my God, okay, yes, another connection where maybe that can get me closer to talking to her in person. So I have some of your swimwear. It's in stores. Do you have your own brick and mortar, or you just wholesale?
No. Yeah, mostly online.
Okay.
We do mostly in e-commerce, and then partner with small mom and pop shops and strategic partners around the country.
Very cool. And that's so just between that and speaking now is kind of your full time.
Yeah, and then kiting as well. I still get paid.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because you're still sponsored. Yes. Yeah. When you mentioned what you considered pro earlier, was like once you start getting paid. I loved that because being in the outdoor industry and just like an athlete through different sports in my life, it's been interesting, especially in the snowboard industry, to hear what some people's ideas of pro is, and it's just competing. And like, you haven't actually ever placed in a competition. And like, some sponsorships these days too, like ambassadors are very different than sponsorships, or getting like sent one thing. So it's always interesting to me to hear what people consider pro, because like to me it'd be like, that's how I'm living, like that's how I can afford the food on my table, is like through that sport. But it's all relative. I think like whatever, if you want to say you're pro, like that's all up to you. But so that was your bread and butter.
As I shared last night. Sensi. And I was waitressing. I shared last night that the first 6 years of my business, I waitressed. Yeah. Because I wasn't making enough money at either thing. And that's what really, like, with the confidence, I was like, I don't feel successful. Yep. Because I'm already working 2 jobs. I got to work a 3rd job to make as much money as I want to be making. But once again, as I mentioned last night in my speech, there is nothing wrong with hard work, and that's super admirable. And to be able to work is such a privilege, and to be not in a hustle culture, I don't believe in that, but just putting it in the hard work to make your dreams work.
Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, because I didn't want to stress about money, and in order to have my nervous system be like, okay, I was like, I'm making money over here so that I can invest in my dreams.
Yeah, I love that, because the hustle culture thing obviously is so big, and I feel like the society is trying to take a huge step back from it and be like, no, you don't need to do that. But then you fall in this category of like, okay, but to feel comfortable, I have to take this side job or do something. But I feel like there's this gray area now of like, no, don't be in hustle culture. Don't feed that machine. But you're like, but like I said, to not be stressed, I'm stressed financially often. That stress is like something you can't get rid of. So if having that side job allows you to take some of that stress off your shoulders, just think about it like in a temporary sense too. And we talked about it in our financial episode. It's like, you don't have to be thinking I'm going to be here forever. Exactly. Like, it's a temporary thing. And like you said, to fund your dream. So if you have that goal on the horizon still, like your why, then like that'll get you through it. That'll be part of what gets you through it.
And there's nothing wrong with hard work. I think there's a difference between hustle and hard work. And being willing to put in the effort for what you want and what you believe in, and not running yourself ragged. Doing all the self-care things, sleeping enough, eating enough, all those basics. That's, I think, the opposite of the hustle. Yeah. Which is like, I'm going to work hard, but also I know I'm going to take care of myself so that I can show up. Yeah. You just can't show up if you're running yourself ragged. And I believe that's what hustle culture is about, like burning the candle at both ends. Yeah. That's a very good point. Finding that, again, a word I don't always like to use, but balance. It's, for better or worse, working hard, but not hustling. Again, taking time for yourself and trying to find all the things that allow you to keep fueling your dreams, but, surviving. So, thriving. I like to say thriving, not surviving. Yes. Are you surviving or are you thriving? Yeah, I feel like hustle culture is surviving. Finding that balance of the self-care and doing what you need is the thriving. So awesome. Well, Sensi, tell us where we can find you, your Instagram, your website, anything out there that you'd like to point people to. Yes, mostly I'm active on Instagram. Sensi Swim, Sensi Swim, or Sensi Graves is my personal, Sensi Graves. And then my websites are sensigraveswim.com, sensigraves.com, and then my third business is a kiteboarding retreat company. We didn't even get into that. That's strutkiteboarding.com. Oh my gosh. Rich, how long has that been going? 6 years. Oh my God! Wow. Yeah, so I did that. No, I didn't. I don't know how I didn't know that. Yeah, I put on women's kiteboarding camps and retreats. Wow. Is that like intermediate, or is there beginner? It is intermediate, but we are partnering with schools for allowing beginners to come. Cool. So that we can help people that want to get into kiteboarding. Awesome. Well, I will link all those websites in the show notes. I'll have to keep my eyes open for the beginner one for sure, and I'd love to do that sometime. Get started in it. It kind of scares the shit out of me because I hate the wind. I hate the wind. Well, you might actually start to like it. I know once there's a point for it. Anything else, I'm like, it's holding me back. I'm like, I can't go for a run. It's windy. I will not run against the wind. I won't bike against the wind. I hate the wind. But so maybe it will turn my thoughts around that element and begin to love it. Well, before we shut off here, is there anything at all you want to leave the audience with? I really just want to say to invest in yourself, that you matter, and to keep going. Love it. But thank you so much. Like I said, dreams come true. Love it. Thank you. And can't wait to spend the rest of the weekend with you. Thank you so much, Karen. You are welcome. We hope you enjoyed this episode and would do us a huge favor, since we don't have any sponsors or anything like that, and would rate and review us on whatever platform it is you use, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, whatever it is. And if you're listening and downloading just through the website, tearingituppodcast.com, leave comments. We'll definitely engage back with you. And on social media right now, we're just on Instagram. Tearing It Up Podcast is the handle. Like the post, share the post, comment on the post, whatever it is you got. Show us your love so we just stay relevant and show up in the rankings at all. So again, rate and review, please. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.